Hello, my fellow golf ball addicts. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are covering the long-awaited brand new Sugar golf ball lineup for 2025. Let's dive right in. Guys, if you enjoy this content, please like, comment, and subscribe like you have been doing. We also have a membership that just starts at $1 a month. I really appreciate everyone who supports this channel. You guys are the best. So if you're newer to the channel and you don't know who Sugar Golf is, long story short, Sugar Golf actually had the ball that got our #1 spot in our first ever top 100 a couple years ago. It was an upset. It came out of nowhere. But again, it's one of those things where it didn't do anything perfect. It just did everything really excellent. And when you have those high scores like that, it was a high enough overall total score, got it into #1. I didn't see it coming, and a lot of people tried it and loved it after that. Those golf balls were $2.50 a piece. They came in a sugar cube, which was, 27 golf balls. Things have changed now. Now Sugar was without stock for over a year. A lot of us had thought at the time they went out of business. We didn't know what happened. I imagine the golf ball factory fire had something to do with that and they couldn't get stock. I think they had to switch factories. So when that happened, now here we are year and a half later, and they've come back with 2 new models as well as a revision of the Sugar Pure. So we have a 2-piece, we have a 3-piece, and we have a 4-piece. The 2-piece being called Soft, the 3-piece still being called Pure, and then of course the 4-piece now being called Quad, which makes sense. So we're going to test these golf balls and see how they are. Sugar's always had a high standing, and the Sugar golf ball, the original, will be inducted into our Golf Ball Addict Hall of Fame at the end of the year, just because it got #1, and so it gets an automatic place in there. So that'll be pretty cool too. All right, let's get into the price of these golf balls, and things have changed a little bit, like I said. So we are now looking at mini cubes that come in 8 golf balls per cube. Now we have to do some math to get dozen prices, but let's start with the Soft. So the Soft 2-piece, $19.99 on Sugar's website, which is not bad until you think, oh, wait a minute, I'm not even getting a full dozen. So when you actually add shipping in there, it's about $25. $25, if you divide that by 8 golf balls, divide that then by 12, or times that by 12 then, excuse me, you're looking at about $37 a dozen. And that is on the high side. There are very few 2-piece golf balls that come that high in price point. In fact, the only one I know that's higher is the Titleist Tour Soft, and I crush on it all the time because I'm like, it's too high. No one wants to pay that. If no one wants to pay that for the Titleist 2-piece, I have a hard time believing anyone's going to want to pay that much for this 2-piece, especially, unless the numbers are just ridiculously good. So I'm hoping for that. But it just puts this unrealistic expectation on this golf ball now. That's a really insane price. Then we get into the Quad, and the Quad is the 4-piece, and it comes at a price point of $32.99 with shipping on Amazon. That's the cheapest you can get it for 8 golf balls. And if we add that up, we get to $49 a dozen, which now you're talking Bridgestone, you're talking Srixon. That's what their MSRP is on their golf balls. And so from a direct-to-consumer standpoint, it's hard because if someone's looking at one and looking at the other, they're going to go with the brand they've heard of and the brand they trust. So again, really high expectations on something that might be unfair. Now, as far as the Pure, I don't know what the price point is. They're still technically out of stock, but they will be back very soon, within the next week or two. I imagine it's going to be in between the $32.99 and the $25, so it might be like $27, $28, $29, somewhere in there. It's going to be anywhere between $40 and $45 a dozen, which is still on the high side, but it's not as bad as maybe the $49, but it's still on the high side. And the thing is that regardless of what it ends up being, I still expect the golf ball to be good because you've got Wright and Ditson at 30, you've got, Legato at 30, you've got Vice if you buy them in bulk down to 32. There's just Cut DC is 30. There's tons of direct-to-consumer golf balls that are 3-piece urethane, 4-piece urethane, and they are $29.99 a dozen now. So it's still on the expensive side. So all 3 of these golf balls, for whatever reason, have a very high price point, and it's just going to put those expectations. So we're going to see how these numbers are. Now let's get into design just real quick. So Sugar has a very simplistic logo. It's actually really nice. It's got this really cool cursive. It's just basic. It doesn't try to do too much. It really lets the font and just the logo speak for itself. What they've done now is they've identified these golf balls by 3 different markings. As you can see on the far left there, that is the soft, indicated by the little lightning bolt S, which is pretty cool. So that's how you can tell it's the 2-piece. The pure is going to have a P above the sugar, as you can tell. So that P indicates it's the pure. And it is a 3-piece urethane opposed to a iometer or Surlyn blend. And then we get into the quad, which is going to have a little T with a golf ball attached to it, and that's going to indicate that it's the quad. And again, we have a 4-piece but urethane golf ball as well, so more of a premium model. Then if we come around and look on the side of all 3 of these golf balls, as you can see, there's some similarities there. They're exactly the same alignment tool, which I actually really like this alignment tool because, again, very simple, doesn't try to do anything crazy. It's nice and thick. It only has 1 point at the end. I mean, you can clearly see that. And it works, you know what I mean? And that's why I fell in love with Sugar's design the first time, because it was just elegant and just basic. And it didn't try to do too much, and it really worked well. And I thought it was great. It was a sharp looking golf ball. So that's what we're working with here. We're gonna go ahead and go out to the chipping and putting green, and let's see how it does greenside. Oh my goodness. All right, so when it comes to chipping with the Sugar golf balls, let's jump in and talk about the spin first. So when it comes to the spin, I was really impressed with the 2-piece. It actually has a lot more spin than a lot of other 2-piece golf balls on the market. I would call it around that 35%. If hit correctly, it has some rip back. It has some grip and some chug, which is really nice. When you get into the pure, it gets a little bit better. I'd call that one around 50%. It definitely has some, chug and some stop effect. It checks up quite nicely and quite smoothly. It was really refreshing to watch. When it comes to the quad, it's about 60%, and the only reason it gets a little more is because it does have the ability to be left and right spin. I was able to get it to jump left at the end there, and if you go right, it actually has a little bit of right bite too, so the bass effect is good there. Didn't see that bass effect as much with the 3-piece, so again, 35%, 50%, 60%, that's a good place to be for, this level of golf ball. I love that. When it comes to the feel of these models, the 2-piece is dead. I mean, there's no feedback in the hands. The sound is non-existent. I actually had the microphone very close. If you go back and listen, that's why I put it down right on the ground next to the shots. It's very dead sounding, and so is the Pure. The Pure actually surprised me because it almost feels and sounds exactly like the 2-piece. It's very soft, very squishy. Not like marshmallow squishy, but just soft and dead. And when it comes to the quad, again, that feeling for a 4-piece, very surprising, but there's not a lot of feedback in the hands. And the click is much more noticeable. You probably heard that little bit louder, high pitch of a click when it was coming off. So that might not be everyone's cup of tea, but not bad. Overall, I've seen worse. I've seen a little better, but this is a good performance. This is something we can build on. Let's get to the putting. Now we're starting to notice the click. So yeah, if you're using a mallet putter, I don't think you're going to have any issues with any of the Sugar golf balls. The Pure is the standout with a 10 out of 10 roll, but the others are 9 out of 10. I mean, really excellent as far as distance control. The feel is pretty, nice and gentle. I think someone who doesn't want a lot of loud and bang and wow in their putting is going to really enjoy these. They're very easy to put down and putt and get very close to the hole and have a lot of success with. So that's the good part. Now we'll move on to the blade. There we go, that's right. Actually, it's going to roll in. So the only real difference when it comes to the blade is that their sound is much more noticeable. You definitely hear that click, whether it's with the 2-piece or the 3-piece or now even the 4-piece kind of amplified, but you'll definitely notice that click, and you probably heard it throughout the testing. But other than that, the roll's still really good. These are still gentle. They're very forgiving. I mean, it's very easy to putt these. So if you're someone who struggles with putting and you need some consistency, these golf balls are a really good match for you. They do help quite a bit. There it is. All right, so when it comes to the sound and feel of these golf balls, let's start with the feel first. Now, feel-wise, honestly, there's nothing exciting to talk about. They're all around average. If we start with the 2-piece, it actually feels really firm for a 2-piece. I'm not getting a lot of bouncy ball effect with it. It doesn't feel like it explodes off the club. Mishits do feel kind of punishing, which is kind of abnormal for a 2-piece. The Pure, however, is nice. It's a good blend. I mean, I would call it kind of close to a 3 out of 5, but I'll go ahead and give it the 4 because it is nice and it offers a little bit of adaptive feedback. The other two really do not, just like the Quad. Now, the Quad's problem is it just feels too firm, and being firm isn't necessarily a bad thing. Maybe it is for a really fast swinger, but I just could not get any type of compression or explosiveness off the club. Even when I went to driver, it felt like it was coming off pretty dead. So we'll see how the numbers are, but I was kind of disappointed in how it felt. But once we get into the sound, that's where things do a complete 180, because the sound of these golf balls, if you run this back and listen, they sound like they were like audio engineered for a video game. Like, the sound is incredible. It has like this amazing, pleasing thwack sound, and it does that across all 3 golf balls. Now, I will admit the 2-piece soft does feel or sound a little deader than the other 2, but it still has a little bit of that in there. So I give Sugar a lot of credit there. If you're someone who likes a nice thwack sound like I do, I enjoyed hitting these for that. All right, so let's talk some data now. So let's get right into the 50-yard pitch. Of course, we're measuring backspin. We're going to start, as you can see, with the Sugar Soft. It has 7,549, which is a little below average, about 400 RPM below average, so not great there. Then we get into the Sugar Pure, 8,204. That's an excellent number. That's about 250, more than average. Really great stopping power there. And of course, 8,221 on the Sugar Quad is going to be just as good. So as you can tell from the launch angles there, basically what I see there is kind of your typical stereotype golf balls. You have your 4-piece that spins really well, and then you have your 3-piece, which also spins right up there with it. 2-piece was a little disappointing. I've had 2-piece golf balls this year spin way higher than that. The Trust Panther, I think, got close to 8,000, and if I remember right, the Titleist TrueFeel was over 8,000 as well. So I do have higher expectations of 2-piece golf balls nowadays. That one spins enough to hold the green. It's not bad for a 50-yard pitch, but that's definitely on the lower side. I wish it had been a little higher. Now let's look at the pitching wedge numbers for all 3 there. As you can see from the 2-piece, we have a gain in distance at some green, which is nice. The other 2 are technically, average basically. They're right on that average cusp. They do hit the yellow, which is really good. Ball speed is pretty average throughout, nothing there. But then we get into spin, and this is where things change again. So the 2-piece has some of the lowest spin I have seen this season. 6,315. So now all of a sudden that gain in distance we just got is kind of null and void because, yeah, it's not spinning. So of course we got a yard further. Actually, we should have gotten more than a yard further because we took off 700 RPM of spin from my average. But we go to the Pure. The Pure actually has some really healthy, excellent checkup. I love to see that. 6,798 is slightly below average, but it is still enough to hold the green. It's just, it's just an average, mediocre number, unfortunately. And with that price point, like I talked about, I can't have those. I got to have some eye-popping. I got to have some really good stuff, but that's what I'm seeing from the Pure right there. So the only other thing I can see is, launch angle. It looks like the 4-piece wants to launch really low. The Pure actually launched the highest, and the mid was actually the 2-piece, so that's kind of interesting. We'll keep an eye on that. Yeah, I mean, all in all, just from those numbers, I don't see a lot that really there's to talk about. The Pure does really well just because the Pure may have average distance, but it spins a ton. So that means if you took that spin away, I'd get an extra 2 or 3 yards, but I don't always want that. Sometimes I want some really good gripping action, and that's what that golf ball did for me. So that right now is the standout. Let's get to the 7-iron. Now looking at these, we have 159.5 on the 2-piece. Again, maybe I'm over compressing it at this point, but that's a really, really low number. 162.3 is average, 161.9 is below average, and also you have to keep in mind with the quad, I swung too fast. 85.9, I'm sorry, that's my bad. This happens every once in a blue moon, but I swung way too fast and I got less than my normal distance, so that's a red flag for sure. Getting into ball speed, again, 113 is not going to win any awards. That's one of the lowest. 115.8 average, 115.5 average. Spin-wise, again, we have the 2-piece falling flat, but we have the Pure and we have the quad actually holding their own and being pretty decent on spin. So again, when you look at smash factor, the Pure is the standout of those 3. Nice little mid-launch as well. It looks like the quad now launched high. That's kind of interesting. And the lowest launch is the 2-piece. Okay. Interesting on those launch angles there. Sometimes, we have a human here, so there is some human error, but I don't like that they're all over the place. That's a little strange for me. Again, the standout's the Pure. It really is. The Pure is holding its own by having, average numbers as far as ball speed and average distance, but the spin is really, really good. And the smash factor is there. There's some good forgiveness packed in. Like, this is a good quality 3-piece golf ball so far, and I'm seeing some really consistent numbers, and I like that. But the other 2, not great so far. Maybe the driver performance can save it. Let's find out. Let's get into the driver. We are looking at, starting with the distance, actually the 2-piece and the 4-piece both not very good. As you can see, those are just slightly above average. They basically fall into the average line, especially with what I've been getting lately. Now, the Pure, on the other hand, that thing is an absolute monster. I mean, good Lord almighty, that thing goes forever. Looking at the swing speed, again, I actually swung the quad a little too fast. And when 4-pieces, sometimes I do that with the 4-piece golf balls. I try to swing it maybe a little too fast because it is a firmer, but I'm still not getting any decent results out of it despite that. Ball speed, again, we have 2 average, but the Pure is just out of this world. 145, holy cow, excellent. Spin numbers, the quad is way too high. The 2-piece is mid, which is okay. I would actually expect a 2-piece to have a little more spin than that. And then the Pure is actually right there too. Goldilocks right in the middle, 2100. That's really nice. Smash factor of 1.49 on the Pure. That is bonkers. I love to see that. Great number. Launch angle, again, we have 17.8, 17.5, and 18. All of those are just slightly above mid. So that's great as far as the launch angle. At least they were all kind of consistent there. That's good. Again, at this point, the Pure is the standout, and the Pure is really making its name known, and I think it's continuing on this great legacy that Sugar has of these golf balls over the last few years. That Pure is doing some serious things, especially with that driver number. The real question is, does that take over the #1 spot for driver? So this is the top 3 golf balls that I've had with performance for the driver this year so far. Only halfway through the year, but this is what we're looking at so far. And you know what? The Sugar Pure has a really good argument. As you can see, those medals indicate what the ball is, like as far as its ranking so far. And yeah, ball mile per hour speed, #1, distance, #1, carry, #1, smash, #1. There's not a single silver medal or bronze medal on there. When it comes to the spin, the Sugar Pure is the lowest. So that's kind of self-explanatory, right? And again, I think that's an excellent cherry on top for the Pure's performance. Nothing maybe like eye-popping, but just really good, consistent results throughout. Then we get to the driver, and then it really kicks the door down and says, okay, no, just to let you guys know, I'm actually a really, really great golf ball. So let's get into some accuracy and dispersion, and let's talk about that and see how these golf balls did there. We're going to start with the 2-piece. We're going to start with the soft. Here's what we're looking at. All right, so starting with the 2-piece soft. So as you can tell, there is some distance disparity on the 50-yard pitch, which I'm a little disappointed in, but 7 out of 10 are really good and all very accurate. So kind of promising there. Getting into the pitching wedge, though, not great. Kind of all over the place. Accuracy, distance dispersion. It's not what I would expect out of a 2-piece golf ball. It continues on with the 7 as well. Nothing special there. Now, I will admit that the driver is in the fairway for the most part. That's
actually all pretty good. There's one pull that's obviously my fault, but when you look at the rest of it, it's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, that's actually really good. That's exactly what I would expect out of a two-piece golf ball. Now getting into the pure, I like the distance dispersion a little better on the 50-yard pitch, but the accuracy does take a little bit of a hit. Getting into the pitching wedge, there's two pulls, but other than that, everything's pretty close for the most part, but still not great. I'm looking for something spectacular, and that's when I feast my eyes on the 7-iron, and that's one of the best 7-irons I've seen all year long. I absolutely love that. Being able to have a mid or a long iron that has that type of accuracy and distance control is, I mean, something every golfer needs, and especially something I need. Then when we get into the driver, you know, there was one that came up a little short. I might have hit it low, but other than that, everything's in the fairway, and everything has really pretty much the same distance there, so that's impressive. When it comes to, this is not very common, but when it comes to the shorter clubs, you know, I'm not really impressed, but when it comes to the long, that's some of the best I've seen, and really, I think most people would prefer to have a little bit more control in their long irons because that's where the ball really starts to spray all over, especially for me. Okay, so getting into the quad now, you know, the 50-yard pitch isn't bad. The pitching wedge is pretty good for the most part, except for one pull, which went really far, but other than that, yeah, that's great. 7-iron is consistent, but it is kind of all over the place. A couple of those are going to be off the green. I definitely had some issue there. I definitely want my pure back when it comes to that. Getting into the driver, I usually expect 4-piece golf balls to really shine here, and it just didn't do that. I mean, that's not the end of the world. Most of those are in the fairway, but there's also some distance issues, and I did pull one. That was my fault, but I don't know, I'm just not super impressed with it. It could have been better. So overall, maybe average.
So let's get into durability now. Let's touch on this. Starting with the Sugar Soft, the two-piece, looking over it, okay, there's some scuffing for sure. There's some dirt marks, but no big deal there. That just rubs right off. I do see some scratches. My main issue with the Sugar Soft is, for the most part, it looks intact, but if you feel the golf ball, it feels very sandpapery. I mean, it feels like this is something I could put on some wood. Ow. Yeah, I mean, like it's definitely got some scuffing there for sure. I think that 1 round's probably going to be the max. I will say that, I mean, again, there's no deep abrasions or anything. So, I mean, I'd call it a 7 out of 10. Absolutely. It'll last you through the round. So it definitely passes. But once it gets to this point, however, it's so sandpapery. I just wouldn't trust it putting. I wouldn't trust it with its flight anymore. It would be concerning for sure. Then we get into the Pure, the 3-piece, and looking at this thing, I do see some dirt, but I don't see or feel any major scratches. Okay, all that cleans up nicely. All right, a little tiny scuff there. Okay, that's not bad. I mean, this looks pretty good for the most part, and that urethane coating on the outside still feels really nice and even. I would have no issue at all calling this a 9 out of 10. This still feels really good. This has a little more left in it. I mean, this is after 80 to 85 shots. It's got a few left in there, for sure. I would trust this putting. I would trust it flying, absolutely. So great performance there. The Sugar Pure just continues on. I love to see it. Then we get into the quad, and looking at this, okay, so I do see a couple big scrapes. Ooh, there's a gash right there, unfortunately. Keep on, oh my goodness, and now here we've hit a gold mine here. We have some cuts, we have some scratches and abrasions, some serious tears. There's a big tear in the S there on Sugar. Yeah, there's ooh, yep, I see that as well. So yeah, that's bad, unfortunately. I can't be as nice to this one after this many shots. I mean, we're looking at probably a 4 out of 10, unfortunately, mainly because of the amount of scratches. So these deep tears I see, I mean, I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's just too many. So 4 out of 10 might even be a little generous, but that's really disappointing. And again, sorry to mention it, Sugar, but the price, it's hard. You can't have this when you're charging $50 a dozen. I mean, I love you guys, but we got to find a way to get that price down. So all in all, I love Sugar. I understand they have gone through a lot in the last year and a half, so I do give them a little grace. I understand that they're having to reroute. They had to come out with new golf balls. They probably had to change a bunch. I'm sure what they've gone through is pretty insane. However, I still have to review golf balls. I still have to be honest, and my honest take on both the 2-piece and the 4-piece is they need a lot of work. They need a lot of work. One, we got to get the price point down. No one is going to want to pay that type of price for average, mediocre performance. And that's the thing about direct-to-consumer. That's why, you know, the ball is in the court of a lot of these direct-to-consumer companies, because if a golf ball is average and it has a price point of $25 a dozen, I can recommend it. I can say, hey, listen, if you're looking to save some money, you don't need the top performing thing, go at it. But when you're a direct-to-consumer company and you're just as expensive as a Strixon Z-Star Diamond, there's just not a lot I can do with that if you have average, mediocre results. I can't do anything with it. And so we got to find a way to get that price down. And also, you know, in the next coming years, maybe revise the golf ball. I mean, is there a chance that if you're a really slow swinger, the two-piece could be better for you? Maybe, but I doubt it, because usually when it comes to pitching wedge, that's where I see it shine. On these really soft, squishy, low-compression golf balls, I will usually see it an increase of 4 or 5 yards with the pitching wedge because it just has so much spring and the compression's great. I saw 1 yard, and I saw almost no spin. Not going to get it done. The quad, kind of same thing. One, the durability is a big turnoff, and also, you know, ball speed numbers just weren't up to par either, especially with the driver. The driver was the moment for the quad to really shine and say like, hey, I'm a 4-piece. I know I haven't been great with the other clubs, but you know what I'm really for, baby? Off the tee. And instead, it just laid an egg. I mean, it really wasn't anything to write home about. It was actually below average. So those two golf balls, I just can't recommend. I don't have anywhere or any market I can really recommend them for at the moment. Now let's talk about the Pure, because the Pure is the real deal. The Sugar Pure continues its great tradition of being an excellent golf ball. And is this going to be a top 10 performance? Maybe not, but top 20? Possibly. We have excellent consistent spin numbers. We have excellent launch angles. Ball speed's up to par. It gets the job done. It checks the box. But where this golf ball really makes its name known is being a top 3 performer in the driver category, and that's going to hold a lot of weight at the end. Also, it has the best durability of the 3, and it has the best dispersion of the 3. So that golf ball is worth your time. I don't know what the price of it will be. I don't know when it's going to come out. I will let you guys know. I'll be in contact with Sugar. But when that Pure drops, it's definitely worth a try for sure. It really is. I think it's an excellent golf ball, and I'm glad to see it tested so well because, frankly, after I tested the first two, you know, which was the quad and the soft, I was a little nervous, but I'm glad that the Pure is an excellent golf ball. Guys, as always, keep watching, keep saving, keep learning. Until next time.